Hi, and welcome to another in my interview series where I'll be talking to one of our many global researchers from around the world. My name's Paul Blunden. I'm founder of UX24, and we help global brands improve their products and services by making them more customer-centric. So let's find out who we're going to speak to today. Okay, hello, and thank you for giving up your time to speak with me today. Can I start by asking you to introduce yourself? Who are you and whereabouts are you based?
Hi, my name is Ilona. I'm a user experience consultant and educator and recently coach, and I am based in Toronto, Canada.
Well, nice to meet you, Ilona. And how long have you been based in Toronto?
Since the age of 11.
Oh, right, okay.
A long time.
And are you native to Canada before that? Or?
No, I was born in the Soviet Union, and I was lucky enough that my parents took me out of there at an early age.
Right, okay, so that's quite a change. That's well, very interesting. I mean, Canada, I know, is very multicultural. A lot of our researchers speak multiple languages, and I wonder if you do yourself.
Do I do research in other languages? I appreciate the value of research in other languages, and I speak poorly 7 of them. But in terms of work, I usually work in English, sometimes French, but not extensively. Like, I wouldn't say I'm going to facilitate a French Canadian study, because I have had experience where my French, which I studied in France, my Belgian colleague was sitting beside me, and we were watching a French Canadian participant who was talking about a chat, which for me is a cat, but actually for her was a car. So I understand the value of having localized expertise in language and the nuance.
Yeah, that's a really important point, actually. And I have so many conversations about the difference between translation and localization. But we'll get there, I'm sure, one day.
And quality of that, both.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's so important. It's one of the reasons we love having sort of researchers in market, because unless they've lived there and really, know the market, it can be quite tricky. So can you tell me, Ilona, how did you get into research? What brought you here?
I studied computer science, and in undergraduate, I was taking a look at my calendar, and there was a class called Human Computer Interaction. What an idea that was. And so I took that course, and then the professor from the course hired me to help him with research, and that was my path. It was very organic, very natural. And the nice story, the circle, is that I am now teaching that same class 20 years on, and it's been a really great, rewarding experience.
Well, that's the circle is complete, as they say. It must be great to inspire people, I suppose, in the same way you were inspired to get involved.
Yes, it's very, very rewarding, because I know that there's so much opportunity in the world, and the students I teach are techies. They're pure computer science students, and to get them to understand about users and something that they don't normally actually consider until they have to help their parents or grandparents with technology. And then so yeah, I always say part of my teaching is very selfish, because I hope that they go out into the world and make better technology, and we will all benefit. That's the way I see it.
Well, that's a great motivation, I think. So obviously you do many things, I know, but one of them is still as a practitioner. Do you have a favorite sort of methodology or favorite research approach you prefer or like?
I do qualitative research mostly, and I love interviews and exploration and learning new things. And I find that no matter how much I know about a topic, I go into a project, about 50% is new. I love the learning and the sort of the puzzle pieces and the exploration of the unknown in that qualitative method, and talking to people and just getting them to open up, and kinds of things they are experts in that they don't even realize, and then we get insights from that, improve products.
Yeah, it's one of the privileges, I think, of being in research, that you have almost something different every day or every conversation.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And as a consultant, I have really worked across all kinds of different industries, so I haven't specialized in any one, and that makes the variety really interesting.
All right. Well, I was going to ask you actually about the sort of sectors you've worked in. Sounds quite broad.
Everything from health to agriculture to financial to small startups and just, really nascent to some student idea projects that then go on to other things. So yeah, great variety. Also, of course, brought media, communications, all of those. Yes, I have worked across.
Well,
even transportation.
Well, there's increasingly a lot of work in transportation, I think, and will be more as the sort of electric vehicle movement sort of gathers pace. With the
transit. One of the projects I did was in the transit authority of a large North American metropolitan city, and it was about trying to get them to appreciate the variety of the customers. That was really exciting. And on that project, can I just go off on a little
tangent?
Yeah. Okay, that project, I was doing like a personas workshop in one of their gatherings, and the people running the workshop said, this user experience thing seems very interesting and important. Can you do a 20-minute pitch to our CEO upstairs? So I had literally half an hour to do the spiel, and almost no time to prepare. So I had to go upstairs to the suits, the boardroom, and do the dance. And they were motivated. Their eyes were open. I love that kind of impact that we can provide.
That's amazing, that kind of impact, if you can get to the right people, I suppose.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And that it links beautifully to my next question, really, which I've been asking a lot of people in these interviews about the maturity in the market that they live and work in Canada. And I wondered if you could sort of share your thoughts on how customer-centric Canada is, or the brands within it, and how mature.
It's a really good question. And some of what I see in Canada, of course, my perspective is limited to my experience and in the brands that I'm both customer and consultant in. So as a researcher, we never want to generalize beyond the scope of what's reasonable within our exposure. So with that research caveat I think that we have a very diverse range of UX maturity across the industry. Canada has a really great IT sector. Toronto area, where I'm based, it's University of Waterloo in Toronto is a really strong hub of AI and technology and finance, and you name it, we have it. We even have automobile now. And the challenge is the diversity of maturities across each organization is different. And even within organizations, each senior management change leads to a reset in maturity, no matter where it was before that, to the next level. And the things that I've seen and heard coming out of various levels of senior management about, oh, well, we spent time last year spending a lot of time hiring consultants to do research, but this year we have licenses to tools and our designers are doing all the research. Look, we've saved all this money. I'm like, oh God, yeah, exactly. But that attitude coming from really, really senior and being delivered at a town hall to a whole large, say, financial institution, where it's like a shock. And another example, another completely unrelated financial institution, another giant competitor of the previous one, there is a completely opposite. They have a strong research department, they have really strong UX presence, and then they still have to, get more consultants help in because they can't handle all the research and it asks. So they have it baked into their product cycle, but very significantly. And almost like project to project, it's almost a new start of a new experience. New project team, new design teams are always going to be all over the place. And it's such a pleasure to work with more mature ones where you don't have to justify your existence. As a consultant now, I have that opportunity, whereas 25 years ago, I would get a call, we are launching a piece of hardware in 3 weeks, can you make it usable? I'd be like, sure, send me that ticket and I'll think about it.
Yeah, I remember those days. I mean, the days haven't changed that dramatically, sadly, in 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating when you talk about organizations who kind of get it and are doing it, haven't got the resource to do as much as they want to do it. And I always think that's a really strong indicator of the value, because once you start, it really sort of sucks you in and you see the value very quickly.
Yes, agreed.
And
let's get more of those.
I beg your pardon?
Let's get more of those.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I wondered, My next question was really about what's the biggest challenge you think the sort of research or brand or product directors face when thinking about sort of trying to get research done. And I guess some of that's going to depend on the maturity of the organization.
I think it's the corporate champion, the politics within the organization, the appreciation, and what I love to quote is user exposure. I think both Nielsen and Spool have been talking about this, and they actually have scales of and numbers of hours per year that every person within an organization should be exposed to, the CEO level having 5 to 20 hours a year of user exposure, watching people using their product or prototypes. If those people have that exposure, it so naturally leads to more demand for research and understanding of the users, because very quickly they would understand the deficiencies and the gaps in the products and want to remove the pain. I always talk about, let's watch the pain, and do we want to wear the pie on our face in public or in private? Because we have that opportunity.
Yes, I love that analogy. That's so true. Interesting. Good. Well, look, again, you've done a wide range of things. I wanted to ask you about a sort of flagship project, but feel free to talk sort of more broadly than that if it goes beyond project.
Oh, I have many projects, and each project leads to a lesson, right? A very long life lesson. And one project that I found really exciting to be involved from the beginning and iterate and work really closely with the design team, having the design right there in the sessions, and maybe even iterating the design while we're running the research, which was not my favorite experience, but it has happened. And the designers really getting it, and then saying that they get it, and then changing their workflow afterwards to include research in, because like anybody who has seen it and sees the value of it will never go without it. So but ironically, what happened, that project won all kinds of awards and accolades and a huge financial benefit to the to the business. However, as a customer, I myself got burned by exactly that same product later, because I had done what all customers do, assume certain kind of defaults, which would be logical in the direction and benefit to the customer, and they had made a different decision. So I ended up actually losing a whole bunch of money. It was more like, okay, the example was, imagine you're buying mobile data, and I had it for my children, and 1 month you're getting close to the cap. So you say, okay, increase it by a certain percentage. And I'm assuming it's a one-time thing. Okay, so 6 months later or a year later, I'm looking at the bill going, what is this extra data? We're not using anything. Turns out the product that I had helped create, which allowed this adjustment, had taken, it was more than $600 out of my pocket. And that was like, oh, sorry, nothing you could do about it. So live and learn.
Yeah, wow, okay.
Ouch. Yeah, it was really good, great success for the organization. The user did not appreciate, and the goodwill, well, here we are talking about it.
Yes, indeed. Well, hopefully that was not opportunistic, and it was more of an error in sort of the way they built it. But let's see.
It's amazing how many times you see these projects. Oh, these users are having trouble in doing DIY, and then the solution is let's charge them for the support that we're going to give them while they're doing DIY, right? Like those kind of decisions, business decisions lead to those are the frustrating moments where you come up with a solution, you identify the problem, and then the business makes the business decisions. And I could say a word that you don't want to be saying on
Okay.
on YouTube, no, but yeah, those words come very naturally. It's like, okay, we don't really care about the customer.
Yeah, right.
That
Okay,
hurts.
we'll move on before we go beyond the the audience. So I'm quite interested in, and again, one of the reasons of talking to people around the world is to sort of understand the nuances of their local market. And I wonder whether you could speak to any sort of local behaviours that Canadians have online or in the market that global brands entering Canada should be thinking about, worrying about, or certainly paying attention to.
It's a really interesting question and a really hard question. My exposure as both as a consultant and a user in Canada is limited to my experience. I have worked with global brands trying to integrate and do multicultural, multi-country studies, and just like observing some of those experiences, applying them to Canada and thinking, are we really going to have such a big difference if we apply this particular research approach to in a larger scale? So what kinds of things are Canadian or Canada? We have a great IT sector. We have a lot of really great tools and startups. We have really multicultural society. And it's very unique in our multiculturalism, unlike our southern neighbors, where they are the melting pot metaphor. And we are, everybody can be Canadian and also keep your previous culture as much as you want. So for example, our leader of opposition wears a turban and is a Sikh, practicing with all the religious rites. So for Canada, that's normal. And so we have people in Canada who never learned to speak any of the official languages because they just live in their own language or their first language. So in terms of authenticity, we have some really authentic international representation in Canada locally. So if a brand needed to do very specific niche market research, you could do it in Canada only and like almost cover a very broad part of the world. Plus, everybody in Canada is connected to a very wide network of international family members and networks of outside of the country. So that's great. On some of the negative things is we have really expensive mobile data. We are the most expensive in the world. For example, this week they raised it $16 a day. You have to pay in order to use roaming when you travel. A day? Like, who's heard of that in the world? And of course, we try to avoid it, finding other providers as soon as we leave the country. And I don't know, that I think we don't have a big enough population, big enough competition. Yeah, so that's one of the challenges. So what specifically, we're very similar to the other domains, but we are, I think, a little more genteel. and also because we have different licensing, different IP, there's all these kind of boundaries that we, unlike our American cousins, we don't have access to the same content. We don't get the same commercials. So there's a lot of these little differences that need to be considered carefully. We have multiple languages, and English, French is just the official languages we have. As I said, I was doing a medical application and doing facilitating just randomly selected families across the customer's pool. And they were, I think, representative with like close to 10 different words out of like everybody came from a different place and they all brought their own language, and we could just do let's see if the Google Translate works on this content. We could just do that without even trying. So that's a bonus, I guess, to get in Canada.
Well, may well be a bonus, but I can imagine for a brand thinking about their global proposition in Canada, that presents us quite a range of challenges.
There's a reason why many of the giant global brands are leaving. I just heard Nordstrom's leaving. Target didn't make it. Yeah, right, things like that. They don't translate one-to-one. Yeah.
Good. Well,
that's why localization is so important.
Indeed.
Including in Canada. Yeah.
Indeed. Great. Well, look, we're running out of time slowly but surely, but I've got a couple more questions I really want to ask you. Ilona, what's inspiring you at the moment?
And my students and the young generation and all the opportunities that are coming. The pandemic was really frightening for 3 years. I still haven't been back to a classroom. I've been doing everything remotely. I love the fact that I can always remember your name when I'm in Zoom. I am actually the queen of Zoom. If anybody is interested, you could look up bit.ly queen of Zoom. I do massive parallel. I think these tools that we've created and we've been thrown into necessity of having to use them are providing some really interesting possibilities and opportunities for, one-to-many, one-to-one, and the combinations of those. So what am I excited? I'm excited that I learn a lot from my students every time and my children as well. And I think the new generation has a different way of looking at things, as does the old one, which is why research is such a cool place to live, because we keep learning every day something new about both ends of the spectrum, tech and low tech and high tech and no tech. And let's mix those things in the appropriate ways that would make everybody's life better. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Wouldn't it just? Yes. Well, that leads beautifully to my final question, which is, what is your biggest learning since you became a researcher?
That there's so much to learn. There's no end of learning. Yes, absolutely. And no matter how much I think I know, I go into a project, I come out extra extra enriched, and so do my clients, and it's always really exciting. It's always a matter of, okay, how much can they take? I learned so much. Do I really tell them everything? Is there such a thing as too much learning?
Well, I'm not sure there is, and I found it fascinating listening to you. I've learned so much myself, actually, and thank you, Ilona, for investing the time to speak with me. I think people will be really interested to hear. I've learned so much about Canada that, all of the things you think you know about Canada have just sort of crumbled away as we've spoken. So it's been brilliant.
Well, I'm so glad that I could be of assistance and of interest. I look forward to watching the others.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Ilona about Canada as much as I did. I think what I find when I'm talking to people is that my preconceptions about a place suddenly sort of crumble, and they certainly did about Canada there. My name is Paul Blunden. I'm founder of UX24. And if you'd like to know more about what we do, please visit our website. That's UX247.com, or find me on LinkedIn and you can message me there. And of course, better still, subscribe to this channel and there'll be another video coming along soon. Thank you for listening.